land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees sweet freedom's song. Let mortal tongues awake, let all that breathe partake, let rocks their silence break, the sound prolong. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben and Elizabeth. Thank you very, very much. So, as I look out here today, I get a little verklempt. Because in making this event today, we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity for people to gather in this very difficult time that we've had in the past 14 months. And true, Wilmington residents come together to support one another, and you have proven it again standing here before me. And I thank you very much for supporting your neighbors and your loved ones here in the town of Wilmington. We join here tonight to come together to remember our loved ones as a community. We as humans have the need to reach out with compassion to one another in need. It has been extremely difficult to do that during this pandemic. We are here to remember our grandparents, our parents, our brothers, our sisters, our aunts, our uncles, and our friends. They are not statistics. They are our loved ones. And it's so important that we all remember that we all have loved ones that have been affected by this. And we thank you for coming here today. The staff and I, back in March, as the months were progressing, from the Department of Elderly Services. I'm so sorry, my name is Terry Marciello. I'm the Director of Elderly Services for the town, for people that don't know me. And every day coming into the office, hearing about the loss of our friends. And those friends that are ours are your loved ones. They were your family. The feeling of hopelessness came over us, that we needed to do something to pull people together and show support for one another. But as time went on, that was so difficult, and we had to come up with a plan in a way that we could share support and show with the loss that we're all here for one another and how important that is. We reached out to Pastor Hay from the Methodist Church, Lori Hayes, the nurse of the Church of Transfiguration, and her daughter Caitlin. And we met on several occasions to come up with this true event and to develop what we have here today. Today is a day of hope. As we see here, our hope sign that, trying to make sure that we have not just on this one day, but a sign that could stay up and show that we're thinking of everybody. So you'll be seeing this sign for a while that was made by Lori Kevin and Caitlin Hayes. So, a day of hope, a day to remember our loved ones, and a day to come together as a community to support one another as the town of Wilmington and its residents do so often. Like I said, I look out to this crowd today, and it's a bit overwhelming to show the support that I'm seeing for what you're doing for your neighbor and your loved ones. So, I messed up on my list here. So, we have the program here today. And first, we would like to have Pastor Hay from the Methodist Church come and do a bit of a service for us. So, Pastor Hay?
Well, Terry, thank you for all you've done to make this evening possible and for your continued presence in this community. It's an honor and a privilege to spend these next few moments with you. It strikes me that we've lost an awful lot through this pandemic. And we come tonight a little tender. We come tonight mindful of those losses. Time and time again as a pastor, I would meet with families to celebrate and give thanks for a life after when someone has died. And those opportunities were always rich and filled with sharing, telling the stories of the dearly departed, drawing strength from their virtues, drawing courage from their character, and we've been so deprived of that. I've done a few services, and according to the state regulations, they had to be very small, oftentimes outside, very little opportunity just to talk, to celebrate, and to give thanks. So we hope tonight we can at least make up for some of that. There'll be other rituals that we'll share in, but telling the stories of the loved ones that have gone before us, I think is such a privilege. It's a sacred duty. We've lost other things. I had a friend of mine whose son was a lacrosse player, and he had a great run. He was elected captain of the lacrosse team. And after the second game of the season, the pandemic broke out. Rob couldn't play. Something that he'll never get back. And I shed a tear for him and so many others like him. But there was a certain resiliency in that young man. He accepted it with dignity and with grace. He understood that there was something more important at stake. And so he embraced that confidently. We've lost people. We've lost opportunities that we won't get back. Some have said they've lost a very sense of time. I can't remember how many people have said to me, well, what day is it? Did I miss something? Because all the familiar patterns that keep us on track have been disrupted. We've lost connection because we've been distant one from another. And we've lost a little bit of closeness with each other as the disagreement and the politics of it all have torn away and pulled us apart. So we're here tonight to acknowledge those losses and to share in a sense of hope. Well, we've lost a lot of things, but we've gained a lot. We've gained skills and strengths. I never knew how much fun Zoom could be. And I've seen a sense of generosity awaken, perhaps precisely because it's been so difficult. Shortly after I moved to Wilmington, I began to look for a barber. And I finally found one. She was excellent. I loved the way she cut my hair. And then the pandemic came. The shop closed. Finally, after 4 or 5 months, I found out where she was. And I went and I got a haircut. And while I was getting a haircut, we talked. And when we were done, I got to pay the tab. And I just had this impulse. I knew what I had to do. So when I got to that, that little slip at the bottom where it says tip, I quickly did the math in my head. The 4 haircuts I missed. And that was the size of the tip. Every time I tell that story, somebody will come up to me and they will say, I did this, or I did that, or I responded with a generous spirit to a need in this way. Yes, we've lost a lot, but hasn't something noble been awakened in us? New priorities emerge. Perhaps a more mature sense of self comes forth. Yes, we've lost, but we have gained. Now, I know not all of us here participate in religious communities, and I don't mean to make anyone feel less than, but I think of the word religion, and it comes from the Latin word meaning to tie together. And I think that each one of us in our own way, some through traditional religious communities, others through other contexts, now have to seek to bring our lives back together, to acknowledge the loss, to embrace a new set of priorities that come. Well, one of the reasons I'm standing before you tonight is because of Audrey Riddle. She was a devoted member of the Senior Center, and I had the honor to be Audrey's pastor and the privilege of sharing in prayers at the graveside at her death. And I learned from her family that she was very fond of a poem called Footprints in the Sand. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's a story of a person who looks along the beach and finds the footprints in the sand, and at the worst times, well, noticing that there were only one set there. And then, that's a lovely poem if you're aware of it. But I have a little takeoff on that. And I share it with you because it speaks of resiliency. It speaks of hope and of courage. One night I had a wondrous dream. One set of footprints there was seen, the footprints of my precious Lord, but mine were not along the shore. But then a stranger print appeared, and I asked the Lord, what have we here? This print is large and round and neat, but Lord, they are too big for feet. My child, God said in somber tones, for miles I carried you alone. I challenged you to live by faith, pick up your cross and walk in grace. You disobeyed and you would not grow. You would not stand against the flow. Your neck was stiff, your ears were shut. So there, I dropped you on your butt. Because in life there comes a time when one must fight and one must climb, when one must rise and take a stand, or leave a butt print in the sand. Well, I thank you for giving me your attention for these few moments, and I thank you for your prayers and your devotion to your loved ones. And may we come together and be a people of hope as we celebrate life and make this journey together. Thank you.
Hi, yes, that was the poem he read at Audrey Riddle's funeral, and a poem that I will never forget because we were all so serious and somber, of course, at a funeral. And just like, if anyone knows Audrey Riddle, in Audrey Riddle fashion, he says that poem and everyone cracked up. So, and that's how I met Pastor Hay. So right now I would love to be able to have Soundscape come up from the Wilmington High School. They're going to do a live presentation for us, and it's a great time to be able to have them because they haven't been able to do this. So we are honored to be able to have them here with us. So without further ado, here they are, Soundscape.
How is that 10 feet? This is okay. You're killing, no, yeah, that's 10 feet. No, I'm okay, you guys ready? You guys parents all done? Do nice and loud. Okay.
4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour
thank you very much. And Sean, thank you. He's the director from the high school for this program, and I thank you very much for bringing the students here to us today. Next, I would like to be able to have a litany of remembrance that will be read by Lori Hayes.
I invite everyone to light their candles. I appreciate it's that time of year where we're actually having more sun, so. Closer? Okay. I'll be reading a litany of remembrance, a poem by Rabbi Sylvan Kamens and Rabbi Jack Reimer. In response, we'll say we remember them. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. May we all join in a moment of silence?
You know, looking out, you don't all get to see this, but looking out and seeing those candles lit, most definitely our loved ones are here with us. So thank you so, so much. The next person I'd like to be able to come up and say a couple of words is Laura Pickett. She is the case manager for the town of Wilmington for the Department of Elderly Services. And she would like to share a little bit as to the next step after this program, with a little something that we'd like to share. Laura?
So grief never ends, but it changes. It is a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness, nor lack of faith. It is the price of love. As a follow-up to tonight's vigil, the Department of Elderly Services will be hosting Nancy Duffy from Beacon Hospice. Nancy has over 13 years of experience leading grief support groups all over the greater Boston area. These programs will be held on Thursday, May 20th, Thursday, May 27th, and Thursday, June 3rd from 12 to 2, and will be held at the Buzzell Senior Center. We did leave information on the tables if anyone is interested. Thank you.
Grieving without funerals, hugging, crying, in person with our communities are things we haven't been able to encounter due to this pandemic. Tonight, it is a start to join us together to remember our loved ones that we have lost and that are so dearly to us. It is the start to have an open conversation It is okay to talk about your loved ones. It's okay for people to ask and let people know that you've missed your loved ones. It's okay for it to be discussed, because that's also another piece that due to the pandemic, people weren't able to get together to talk about the ones that they've lost. So it's time to start that conversation. The flower that we have given you, feel free to take it home with you or place it on our sign of hope that will be here for a few days. And this hope is a sign of remembrance and honor for your families. Also, we want to invite you to all, if you would like, to make a square. If you noticed when you came in, we have an example of we're making a quilt. We have a group of people that are coming together to make that quilt. And so we've been very fortunate to get quite a few back already. But if you're interested in taking a packet and bringing it back to the senior center within the next couple of weeks, that'd be great, because then we'll be having that quilt travel throughout the town. And that candle that you're holding today, that candle represents the light that we are beginning to see, the hope of coming together again, the hope of making that change of seeing everybody again and getting to talk to everybody again. We all know within every day, every minute of the day, things are changing, as things were changing again today. And that we can all come back together and see one another and see how each other is doing. And I have to say, this town of Wilmington has been extremely, extremely supportive to its residents. Also, the businesses, the organizations have gone out of their way to support one another, and that is not being unseen. People notice, and I want to thank you very much for our department, but also for everybody throughout the town. This is the beginning, and the hope that fills our hearts is beginning also. You are not alone. Remember, Wilmington is a community. And as we mentioned, and as in our publicity to make this function happen, Wilmington is a community of hope. We stand together. We help one another. And this is another way we can do it, because a lot of people did pass through this pandemic. And a lot of us haven't had time to grieve. And it's okay to grieve, because we're here and everyone's here to support you. I would like to be able to take this opportunity to also thank one of these cards here. To also thank many. I'd like to thank the selectmen and the town manager for supporting this event and having not even a thought, knowing the need for us to come together, and we appreciate that. I'd like to thank my staff that has been beside me since all this has happened. Laura Pickett, Kelly Fordham, Lisa Finicos, Sonia Halliday, and Patty Meehan. I'd like to thank Pastor Hay for doing Audrey's funeral and for me having that opportunity to meet him and see that little glimmer of hope for all of us. I'd also like to thank Ken Michaud, who you'll be hearing very soon after this. I'd like to thank that high school group, Soundscape, for taking the time out of your day coming here, especially when I know there's prom and graduation and so many things going on. So I thank you. And I'd like to thank the Methodist Church of the singers, both Ben and Elizabeth being how close to pregnancy of delivering. Thank God so far she has not delivered on the common. And I'd also like to thank all the department heads that have been so supportive in helping us through all of this. Again, Wilmington is a wonderful town to be in. And lastly, I would like to be able to thank WCTV. They are here today taping us, but they've also been very active in helping keeping everyone engaged. So again, thank you for taking the time. coming here together as a community. And I also noticed that we also have Senator Tarr that's here along with the selectmen crowd back there. So thank you for coming. But again, this is for you to remember your loved ones, for you to know that you're not alone and that our hearts are with you. And at this moment, I would like to have our final song.
WCTV, connecting our community. WCTV, connecting our community. Wilmington, Massachusetts.